Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, sometimes I have to remind myself that where I'm standing now, in fact, the whole of Long Meadow, was just an untended field, completely empty of all plants. And everything here I've planted over the years and created. So the garden to me is a series of layers. And one of the really important parts of that are the hedges, which provide the structure, because I've always loved formal structure and informal planting. And these hedges hold the borders like a hand holding a bunch of flowers. And this worked well until recently. And then the dreaded box blight has ripped through the garden, and the fungus has reduced my box hedges to threadbare rags. And today I'm going to be looking at the perils and the joys of fungus in the garden. Come on. Also this week, Rachel gets behind the scenes at the location of Downton Abbey to visit parts of the garden that the cameras don't see.
I'm especially lucky to be getting a private tour with the real lady of the manor, the Countess of Carnarvon herself.
And James Wong joins us to reveal new research in plant diversity for insects.
You look at this exotic mix and you can just see why us humans have fallen in love with how they look. But what do they do for our native pollinators?
I really have to do something about these box hedges. And I've been joined here at Long Meadow by Dr. Matthew Cromie, plant pathologist from RHS Wisley. Is box blight something entirely new?
Well, there are two box blights. One of them's been here since at least 1840, Volutella blight. That one's much less serious. It only infects damaged tissues,
right.
So around pruning cuts. So that one we're not so worried about. The real box blight, the one that we are concerned about, that was first found in UK 1998.
Now, because obviously I knew you were coming and you asked me to get a bit of infected material, I've got it here, and will you be able to identify which blight it is from this?
Well, I can try. So here we've got a lesion here on that leaf. Let's look on the other side, and what we're looking for is the white fungus.
Yeah, OK.
The other thing to look for is on some of those stems, you may find some little black streaks, and the little black streaks is the other diagnostic characteristic.
So, we have the nasty stuff. You can see the effects on these low hedges.
Absolutely, it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
And it's completely disastrous. But if you open it up and look in, there is regrowth.
Definitely. And the regrowth is a bit sparse at the moment, partly because of a bit of debilitation on the plant through losing leaf tissue, but also it's not open to the sunlight, so it's half wanting to grow and half not.
So would you suggest, with these hedges, taking them back to get rid of all the dead material?
In this case, maybe a third to a half off.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The second thing it will do will give a much more open structure, which is less conducive to disease because the box blight likes moist conditions, and you're opening up that part for good growth afterwards.
Now, that's fine on a hedge.
Yeah, sure.
Because the nature of it is you can cut it down, you can let it grow up. But we have another problem. Now, in here, this is an area we call the box bull for obvious reasons, and it is riddled with blight. And certainly I was beginning to feel these have been stricken. Hoik them out and think again.
I wouldn't give up yet. Diseases are a natural part of any garden, so you're not going to get rid of them. You may need to change the design of the garden to ensure that you can cope with the disease, but it's worth a try. So one of the strategies is to think about trying to create a structure that's not quite so dense. You still have a ball, but areas like here, you know, it's dead right down.
Yeah.
So you probably need to cut that out just to open things up and hopefully get some growth coming up.
So I need to just get in and get creative with it before I get destructive.
Yeah, take it as an opportunity.
Obviously, I'm an organic gardener, so don't use fungicides, but are there good fungicides that people could use?
There are two fungicides that have just been registered this year for control of box blight, available to home gardeners. If they're used, they should be used judiciously. I don't think you should be using them everywhere all the time.
Are you spreading the spores as you move around? Is the wind and the dust and your feet and your trousers and everything else, is that spreading it?
Your feet, your trousers can, but not directly from airborne spores. Foxbite fungus is sticky, so the main risk is the infected leaves. So if you're carrying a wheelbarrow around, some of those leaves may blow off and move into an uninfected area. You've been doing some work on there, you might have some spores on your hands. You go to an uninfected area, you can potentially spread them.
So wash your hands,
Wash your hands.
if you've been touching, and bag them up.
Bag them up, yes,
And
definitely.
then burn them if you can. Matthew, thank you so much for coming along, because the advice has been invaluable. Lots of knowledge, and best of all, some hope. So that's good. Thanks
pleasure.
very much indeed. Now, Rachel has been to see a garden that my guess is lots of us have seen, but very few of us indeed have actually visited.
Set in 1,000 acres of sweeping parkland, Highclere Castle makes for an impressive sight in the West Berkshire Downlands.
It's been the ancestral seat of the Earls of Carnarvon for more than 300 years. But this place is probably better known to most people as Downton Abbey, the home of Lord and Lady Grantham. And I'm so excited to be here because I'm a huge fan of Downton Abbey. And you can imagine the Rolls-Royce sweeping up to the front door. Carson opens the door and Lady Mary steps out elegantly. I'm in heaven.
What we don't often see on our TV screens is its spectacular gardens, and that's what I've come to explore.
And I'm especially lucky to be getting a private tour with the real lady of the manor, the Countess of Carnarvon herself. Lady Carnarvon, hello.
Hello.
Can I give you a hand?
That'd be lovely.
How often do you find yourself actually out here, getting hands-on and...
Do you know, for the last bit in the evenings, I've come after everyone's gone and have really enjoyed it. My husband and I, Geordie and I, come down with all the dogs. It's something we both love. And Paul, the garden, has a huge amount to do here, so an hour here and there, I hope, makes a bit of difference. It'll help it a bit, won't it?
There we go.
Thank you.
Well, I have to say, the border is a sight for sore eyes. It's got these wonderful, sinuous curves snaking along the garden. When was this designed?
It was the thing that my grandfather-in-law did with the gardens 40 years ago, was he commissioned the design of the secret garden, and there was nothing straight in it. So I think we follow that. We're not a formal parterre anymore. We were that 200 or 300 years ago, but not now. So we're keeping with the curvy, wavy, not particularly straight line in life. I like it.
Yes, and I love those bays, the sort of the way that the colours just sort of pop in and out and you don't see everything at once.
You can put something quite large on the edge of the bays, so you don't have to have small at the front and large at the back.
Well, I'm very keen to see the rest of the garden.
Good.
Please.
Well, let's go.
Despite being situated in sprawling Capability Brown parkland, the gardens feel surprisingly intimate, and they're split into two distinct areas.
So we're now in the monk's garden.
We are in the monk's garden. It's a garden which was first created by the monks when they owned this estate, probably round about 749, and they gardened here for 800 years.
I have to say, I mean, never mind the white garden at Sissinghurst, this is something else. Highclere, you know.
I know, I looked at Sissinghurst. It's a great success this year. Every year is different, though, isn't it? The great big poppies are wonderful. And the white border I find just very calming.
Tell me a bit about the history of the garden then after the monks, that period.
Well, the monks were here for 800 years, until the time of Henry VIII. So during all that time, it was a productive auction, I think, and it continued in that sort of vein until it was used for cutting flowers and things like that in Victorian times. And then my parents-in-law turned it over to these lawns when we opened to the public in 1988.
You can really see in this border that you've gone for the texture. I mean, it's very touchy-feely. This fennel's fantastic.
It's lovely, isn't it, actually? And what's wonderful is it looks great throughout the year.
And sort of multi-sensory, because you've got the lavender as well going around the edge of the garden, so you've got the fragrance. I have to say, I can't imagine Lady Grantham on her knees in the flower beds, you know, putting in the lavenders. But I am intrigued. I've got to ask about Downton Abbey. I want all the gossip. Do they film in the garden very much?
They do film in the garden, particularly the secret garden, but they normally attribute it to Maggie Smith or Lady Grantham's dower house.
Do you ever have problems where they're trying to film out of season, for example?
Well, actually, it gives them the problems because the scale here is quite big. So when they want autumn and it's spring, they've got a bit of a problem. So they can use... There's quite a lot of dark greenery here, which is fantastic. So that is whatever season you are. It doesn't really change, which I do think helps them.
And just when I think I've seen everything, Highclere has another wonderful surprise in store.
This meadow is so magical.
It's heaven, isn't it? There's a massive different insects and butterflies and bees, and of course we collect the honey from it as well. So it really is a glorious part, and it's been such a success.
Do you have a favourite part of the garden?
I'm not really sure. It tends to be what I'm at the moment working on. I think it's the huge scale of it here, and I am just looking after it for my lifetime. And when I look back at what we've done, it's just part of the journey of where we're going. It's a wonderful place to work, very calming and very relaxing. You're never quite happy and you're always quite restless, so that's life.
I said we'd be looking at good fungus. Well, now I want to try and create delicious fungus. I'm going to grow some mushrooms. I've got between 3 and 5 kilos of straw, and you can buy this from a pet shop. And this has been soaking for just over 24 hours in cold water. So it's thoroughly damp, but I've then drained the water off. So it's soggy but not sploshy. And underneath here is a pack of grey oyster grain spawn. And these have got the spores in. And you mix 100 grams with up to 5 kilos of straw. And the way it works is that as this wet straw starts to decompose, the fungus will grow into it and then, in time, produce fruiting bodies. And it's the fruiting bodies that we eat. They need to go into a polythene bag, and the only bags I've got are very flimsy bin liners, and I'm slightly worried that they're going to break because they have to be in the bag for 6 weeks. So I'm putting it in a Hessian one simply to give it a bit more robustness. Nigel doesn't seem very impressed by this. I don't think mushrooms are his thing, really. It's important that you use straw or dried stems because carbon-rich material needs fungus in particular, as well as bacteria, to rot it down. So as much as the straw is helping to produce our hopefully delicious mushrooms, the fungus, which are essentially the mushrooms, are helping to decompose the straw. It is a symbiotic relationship. Now, take them to their new home where they're going to spend the next 6 weeks. Come on, you can come too. Come on. I'm going to pop these up here next to the compost heaps. 2 reasons for this. The first is that they're out the way and won't be disturbed and are nice and sheltered. And the second is it's very appropriate that they are connected to compost. Now, in terms of keeping these, there's nothing in there for you, Nigel. Ideally, they're kept at a temperature between about 20 degrees and 25. In 6 weeks' time, I will get a knife and cut slits into the polythene. And hopefully by then, the fungus will have grown and helped decompose the straw, and fruiting bodies will appear through those slits, which, of course, are the mushrooms that I shall eat. So we'll have a look in 6 weeks' time. Compost heaps and leaf mould absolutely depend upon fungus. Leaf mould in particular is mainly converted from leaves, fallen leaves, into this material by fungal activity. And compost heaps too. Although an awful lot of the activity is bacterial, fungus is essential in breaking down compost and equally essential in that relationship between plants and the soil. Nothing will grow without fungi. You should nourish your fungi. You should value them. Don't see them all as baddies. And if you use fungicides, which is fine, that's up to you, think about it, plan it, work out the best time to use them. Use them responsibly because there is a real risk that you will kill more good fungi than you will bad. And without the good fungi, you'll have no garden. I've got the greenhouse doors shut to keep blackbirds out. Now, these grapes were my pride and joy. This is the first year when we were looking for a harvest. And a little while ago, I opened the greenhouse in the morning because you want to ventilate greenhouses as much as possible at this time of year, came back to find that every single ripe grape had been eaten. Not one was left. And you can see, look at these bunches here. Plucked, and what was left behind were green ones, which have since ripened, just in the last few days. And it just is being pillaged by these dratty blackbirds, hence keeping the door shut. Now, I can't keep on with no ventilation, so one job I've got to do this weekend is to make a netting that I can weigh down, open the doors, and then put the netting up, and that will keep the birds out. And just accept the fact that I've got half the harvest that I otherwise would have had. Now, we know that insects are really important for a healthy garden, but this is something that more and more research is being done on. And James Wong has been to Wisley to find out more about this.
The vast majority of our ornamental plants, 70%, are not really British at all, but they're actually alien species from the four corners of the globe. So even outside this classic English cottage, we have cestrums from the New World, from the Americas. We have beautiful dahlias, proper English garden plant, actually domesticated by the Aztecs of ancient Mexico. And right at the front here, a killer African crinum. Beautiful plants. You look at this exotic mix and you can just see why us humans have fallen in love with how they look. But what do they do for our native pollinators? A meadow like this on a warm summer's day is positively buzzing with them, all gathering the nectar they need from the flowers and pollinating them in return. They thrive in habitats like this, where they've been living for thousands of years. So perhaps because of that, we're often advised that the only way to help them is to plant native species, and that exotics are, well, somehow inferior in some way. But is there really any evidence for that claim? To help give us some tried and tested guidance, the RHS at Wisley has been running a unique field experiment called Plants for Bugs. Dr. Andrew Salisbury is the entomologist on the team who has been running the experiment for 4 years. Andy, you've got to have the most beautiful scientific experiment ever here. Tell me what's going on.
In these plots, we have 3 different treatments, or plot types, really, of either native plants or what we've termed near native. These are plants that are found in the Northern Hemisphere, so the rest of Europe, North America, or even Russia, and are closely related to our native plants, but not considered native to the UK. And we also have beds of exotic plants found in the Southern Hemisphere, so places like South Africa, Australia, or South America.
And what did we find?
We've been recording the pollinators on these plots, and we have found more pollinating insects such as bees on the native and near-native Northern Hemisphere plants. But we did find plenty of pollinators on the exotic plants as well, and we found that exotic plants tended to extend the season. So we got more pollinators on the exotic beds late in the season, sort of September, October time, than we did on the native or near-native beds.
So while insects do love native wildflowers, exotics can provide a vital extra source of food in the autumn. So what are we looking at here? Native bed?
This is a native bed. You can see a Bethany and a scabious here.
And you can really just see that quite a lot of them are going over as we get into mid and late summer.
And here we have one of the near-native beds.
You can really tell that it's almost an exact copy, but using similar species, like this Macedonian scabious rather than a native one. And equally, just going over.
Yes, the near-native beds seem to go over about the same time as the native beds. And here we have finally one of the exotic beds.
I'll talk about exotic. This Lobelia tuber is specifically evolved to attract hummingbirds. So you'd think that there's nothing in the UK, no wildlife would be able to figure out what to do with that.
Well, we found that that's not true. We found that honeybees in particular have found out how to get at the base of the flowers and get at the nectar.
So they're super adaptable.
Yes.
I mean, it's covered in them, and talk about a richness of flowers at this time of year when all the other beds are really not looking great.
Yeah, I mean, there really is at the peak of flowering now and continuing to flower for several more weeks, providing sort of that late nectar source.
What a difference, what
Amazing.
a difference. So what would your advice be if a viewer at home has a small garden, all they want to do is help pollinators to the maximum benefit? What kind of plants should they be looking at?
Don't worry too much about planting just purely natives. Getting some exotics in there which will extend the season can really help our native pollinators.
So this exotic cocktail, using botanical ingredients collected from all over the world, has made British gardens what they are today. None of this, literally none of what you see before you, would be possible without introduced plants. And now we know they're as good for pollinators as they are people. I can tell you that in gardening, you can have your cake and eat it.
It's good to know that we can grow a really diverse range of plants and attract lots and lots of insects into the garden, and it certainly seems to work for us. I get loads of letters about black spot on roses and how to deal with them. I've got, in fact, got one in my pocket, which is fairly typical. And it's from Carol Halley in Bournemouth. This year, most of my roses have contracted black spot, and having sprayed since early spring, I'm beginning to despair. I'm wondering if it'd be better to give them a hard prune now, or is it too late? The flowers, though, have been marvellous, better than previous years. First of all, this is a fungus that affects the leaves of roses. I've got some there, that's very typical. You've got yellow areas, you've got sooty black areas, but the flowers are not affected at all. As Carol said, this has been a fabulous year for roses. And most importantly, black spot has never killed a rose bush. It can defoliate it, which will weaken it. It doesn't harm the flowers. What you can do, and a good way of management, is to collect up any leaves that are affected and burn them. And make sure there are no other plants or any plant material around the base of the rose. Leave it open to the elements all winter, and then in spring, give it a water, mulch it thickly, and I mean really thickly, about 4 inches. Prune it so there's plenty of ventilation, and that will help. But honestly, there are bigger worries to be had in the garden. For example, take a look at my honeysuckle. This honeysuckle does look, at first glance, absolutely disastrous. But in fact, it's not as bad as it seems. There is a problem, and it's fungal, and that is powdery mildew. And you can see there that the fungus creates this powder. It's sort of grey, white, looking like a touch of ash or talcum powder. In fact, that's not uncommon. Clematis get it too. You've got a perfectly happy clematis here, but down the base, dusted with this mildew. Now, that fungus depends upon very dry conditions. And when you start to deconstruct the honeysuckle, it makes sense, because it's grown up through the hedge. and created this bird's nest. It's planted on this side. We've got it planted either side of the hedge, right near the roots, which means the hedge is taking up all the moisture. The bird's nest effect is creating a canopy, so if there is rain, it can hardly get through to the ground, and when it does, you've got the hedge and other competition. And the poor thing is bone dry, hence the powdery mildew. But if you look, there's plenty of new growth. So the way that I'll deal with this is cut it back along the line of the hedge, pull out all the dead material, clear around the roots, give it a really good soak and a mulch, and I think it will grow back fine. So that's me sorted for the weekend. Here are some jobs for you. My tomatoes are ripening fast, and I want them to keep growing healthily, so ventilation is really important, especially to ward off problems of blight. Take off all the lower leaves, at least up to the first truss of fruit. And if any are overhanging the fruit, remove those too, as that will allow them to ripen quicker. As soon as your gooseberries, red currants and white currants have finished fruiting, it's time to give them a bit of a prune. Open them out, removing all growth in the centre of the plant, and this will let ventilation in and reduce the risk of mildew, and then reduce the remaining growth by about a quarter, and this will put energy into the fruiting spurs for next year's harvest. In order to have a year-round supply of parsley, it's necessary to plan ahead, and sow parsley seeds now for harvesting in the new year and next spring. Sprinkle the seeds thinly on a tray of compost and cover it lightly. And sometimes when you water freshly sown seed, it can push the seeds to one side of the tray. Instead of watering from above, set it in some water to soak up from below. Leave it for about 10 minutes and then put it aside to germinate. Come. That's what you want, isn't it? Now I'll take Matthew's advice and cut out the dead wood on these box balls to encourage the new wood to grow. We can salvage this, either as cloud forms that will bond together, or if that doesn't work, I can cut them all right back to about half the size, let light and air in, and that may well resist the blight. So first step is take some material out. And if I go back to something living, that means cutting that out there and putting it in a bag. I can see this is something that's going to take time and I need to be careful about, but it's worth it because there's hope that these box plants might survive, and they've become very important, not just to the garden, but to us. We're very attached to them. So that's positive, it's good. Anyway, that's also the end of today's program. See you next time. Bye-bye.